Welcome and good afternoon. This is Commish Orr, and today is an exciting day because after a long time of setup, I finally played my very first game of History Maker Baseball, and it was also the very first game in the Baseball Maelstrom Triple-Elimination Tournament. So, I'm going to give you just my initial thoughts after one game. Much too early to tell whether the intricacies of whether this game is good or not, or whether I like it or not, and that kind of thing. But I'm just giving you my first impression after playing one game, and then I'll talk about the game itself. But I guess what so I took some time. If you see my other videos, you know I took some time getting this dice roller set up so that I can roll dice and have it show me the results. So I digitized all of the History Maker Baseball charts, so they're at my disposal here, and very easy to reference and that kind of thing. And I have everything I need to reference here in one place. So so that's what I've been taking time to do here. And so just my initial impressions of the game. I guess the first thing I'll say is if you're coming from Stratomatic or Payoff Pitch or APBA or any of the other games, any of the other tabletop baseball games, History Maker Baseball is completely different. It has a completely different way of handling results and a completely different way of viewing player cards and that kind of thing. So what I found is two things. One, I have to still get used to the flow of the game. Obviously my very first time playing was not very polished, and so I need to kind of get used to the way the thing flows. And I'm sure, as you know, like anything else, once I get used to that, things will be a lot smoother. So some things weren't as smooth, but again, that's mostly because it's my first game, and I'm just kind of getting used to the way the game flows. The second thing you have to get used to is the fact that, unlike pretty much any other tabletop baseball game that you might play, you can't just look at a card necessarily and know what your odds are of rolling certain things, if that makes sense. So in Stratomatic or Payoff Pitch or App or whatever other game you may be playing, you can look at a batter's card, for example, and you can pretty much see, compare two batters, for example, and say, oh, this one has a lot more home run range, a lot more numbers you can roll to to get in the home run range than this other guy, or man, this guy has a lot more hit chances or a lot more walk chances and that kind of thing. Likewise on the pitcher side, oh man, this guy has a lot more strikeout chances on his card and that kind of thing. Well, because of the way the cards are designed in History Maker Baseball, you can't just compare two players like that as easily, because the players are not rated with numbers. They're rated with words, I guess, or description. So I'm just going to pull up a couple of cards here as an example. So here we have Derek Jeter from 1999. We see that he is semi-hero, semi-champion, slugger. That little dot means semi. Semi-iron fielding, which is a step down from average. And so there's nothing you can look at on this card, especially after just playing this one game, that's going to tell you that Derek Jeter has way more double chances on his card, for example. Now, we know what his stats were in 1999, and we can judge based on that because that's how these descriptive words are determined. But it's not as easy to just compare two players, which I kind of like that, because tell me if this has happened to you, but too often you in other games you can just put two cards side by side, and you can kind of just look at the two cards and you can just say, well, this guy has a lot better chance of getting on base than this guy, just by comparing the two cards, the ranges of the numbers that you might, the dice rolls that you might have. You can just compare them that way. And this History Maker Baseball, you really can't do it that easily. Now, again, once you get used to what these descriptive words mean, if a player is patient, he's going to walk a lot more, for example. If he's a home run king, he's going to hit a lot more home runs. But if you've only played a few games, semi-champion, what does that mean? Semi-hero, that leads to certain hitting ability and that kind of thing, but it's not as easy to just look at two cards and tell. Same with the pitching cards. We see Spud Chandler here from 1943 New York Yankees. He's ace, semi-flash, and control. Well, without knowing what those terms mean, and I do know what they mean because I've gotten I've seen how to create your own cards and seen the description and that kind of thing. But it's not as easy at a glance to tell who's better, which player is better than another. So you kind of have to. It's kind of like real life in that sense, right? Just because you have two hitters and one guy is a 275 hitter and one is a 300 hitter, who's best for a certain situation? Well, it's not as cut and dry as just comparing the two that way. So that part, some people may find not to their liking, but I actually don't mind it. I actually don't mind it that much because I find that other games that have specific ranges of dice rolls, you can almost gamify the system a little bit in terms of why would you ever bring in a certain pinch hitter to pinch hit for somebody when you know that the person they're pinch hitting for has a better range of getting on base, for example. So anyway, that's my little comment about that and how you can't just look at the cards and tell. But what that also means is the flow of the game is a little bit different because you are going to make a roll here and you're going to start with the pitcher. Let me get to a pitcher, a good pitcher result here. Let me see here. Okay. Prospect, if the pitcher's a prospect, it's well hit and you're going to check the fence down here. But if he's not a prospect, then you look at the batter. Is the batter patient? Then he walks. Well, let's say the batter's not patient. Well, then he's gonna pop out to second base. So the flow of the game is you're gonna check the result and read down this pitcher, batter, fielder sequence until you find a descriptor that matches what's on that player's card. So again, the flow isn't quite the same as just rolling and looking in the range and then you know exactly what happened. Well, in this case, you look at the descriptor and you know what happens that way. Anyway, so that's just going to take some getting used to the flow of things. And then there's, drama chart and the mini charts to get used to, ballpark effects, umpire effects. Yes, there are umpires in this game. That's the only game I've played that has umpires that are actually rated. If you come over here to unusual results, so here were the umpires in my first game that I played, and you'll get a call that'll, based on the base situation, let's say, like in this case, questionable umpire at home. If Evans had been questionable, then he would have called a third strike, whereas other umpires would have called ball 4. So the umpire can actually affect some plays that way, which I think is pretty interesting. I didn't have any unusual results, like highlight reels or anything like that in the first game, but those are possible too. So I'm still getting used to the flow of things and the results, the distribution of results, I'll say that. Because you're not only rolling 3 6-sided dice and a decider die, but the 3 6-sided dice are put in order from lowest to highest, if that makes sense. So you're much more likely to roll a 1 than to lead off with a 1 than a 6, because the only way a 6 is leading off is you have 3 6s. Because that's the only way you lead off with 1, because you're always going lowest to highest over here. So some of it's just getting used to that. Some of it's getting used to the base running chart and when is a grounder a double play, when is it a fielder's choice, when do runners advance, and that kind of thing. Stolen bases. So those are little minor systems. A lot of it's just getting used to all of that. And then there's just other stuff to kind of keep track of. So if a pitcher allows 3 straight base runners, he's a semi-struggler. If he allows a 4th straight base runner, he's a struggler, for example. So you got to kind of keep that in mind. Anyway, so there's just little things like that to that you need to kind of keep in mind when you're playing, and that affects the flow of the game. And so, as I said, once I get used to that, I think once I get used to the flow, I think things will be a lot smoother. Just this first game, obviously I'm looking up everything possible because I don't have it memorized. It's not off the top of my head. I'm not exactly sure on a couple of things, whether I'm doing them correctly, whether I'm advancing the runners the correct way, and that kind of thing. So once I get kind of used to that, everything will be fine, I think. But it is something to keep in mind if you're coming over from a different game into History Maker Baseball, because it's a completely different experience. History Maker Baseball, I'd say, is more around the story. The story around the game plays a big role. So a lot of the results have a story involved almost. So, like the shortstop making a diving stab to rob the batter of a base hit. Other games may have just said ground out to short, right? Well, this has a little bit of a story involved here, so you can kind of visualize what's going on here in your head. Likewise, before every game, you're looking at a game day chart, and your batting coach, your pitching coach, your team trainer, the front office, the local media may be giving you a message about certain players that's going to impact their performance that day. Or there may be injuries, that kind of thing. So that's, again, a different system than other games. Other games have homebrew stuff that will account for that, possibly. But this game has it kind of baked in. So far I enjoyed my first game. Again, just kind of getting used to it and getting things smoothed out. So let's talk about that first game. It was, if we look back here at the Triple-Elimination tournament, it was the number 1 seeded New York Yankees facing the number 16 seeded Seattle Mariners. And these are the all-time franchise greats set for History Maker Baseball. So the Yankees, of course, have all of the greats throughout the years: Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Mickey Mantle, and so on. And the Seattle Mariners have all of their franchise greats. So you actually had Alex Rodriguez was on both teams because he's on the Seattle all-time greats team, and he's on the New York Yankees all-time greats team. And so very interesting. But like real baseball, in any one particular game, anything can happen. And that's kind of what happened in this one. Mariners actually beat the New York Yankees in the first game, even though they were the last seeded American League team, and the Yankees were the top seeded American League team. And if we come over here to the box score, we can see that Felix Hernandez was pitching for Seattle against Spud Chandler for the Yankees. And Hernandez had a rough couple of innings, allowed 4 runs in the first 2 innings against the Yankees there. But then he settled down and actually, after allowing the first 4 runners to reach base in the second inning and 3 runs, he retired the next 14 batters until the 6th inning. Meanwhile, Chandler, he allowed a second inning home run to Brett Boone, and he allowed a couple runs in the 4th, a single and a sac fly. But he took a 4-3 lead into the 8th inning, and unfortunately, he stayed into the 8th He wasn't tired or anything. He was still good. But Ken Griffey Jr. hit a 2-run homer there in the 8th to give Seattle the lead, 5-4 lead. Heading into the bottom of the 9th, we had Seattle actually blow that lead here. With 2 outs, Derek Jeter hit an RBI single that tied the game at 5 and sent it to the 10th inning. Goose Gossage had pitched a perfect 9th and stayed in and retired the first 2 batters in the 10th before Brett Boone hit his second homer of the game, his second solo shot of the game, to give Seattle a 6-5 lead. Bill Swift actually came in for Seattle in the bottom of the 10th, and it looked like the Yankees were going to pull off another amazing come from behind here, when Lou Gehrig led off with a single, stole second. Mantle was hit by pitch, and Joe DiMaggio walked to load the bases with no out. But then Swift struck out the next 2 batters and got Yogi Berra to fly out to end the 10th inning and to keep the Yankees scoreless and to give Seattle that 6-5 victory. They're actually only 1-0. I notice it says 2-0 here. They're actually only 1-0. That's a little mistake because I'm using ball score and ball stat, and I had to get the team set up, so that took a little bit, and so there were a couple little quirky things that happened with the box score. But other than that, the box score is pretty accurate here. So yeah, overall, a 10-inning game, Seattle with the surprising upset here. And so they will advance in the winner's bracket. Be curious how this works. All of the teams are seeded by their franchise winning percentage. So Seattle beats New York to advance. And New York falls to the loser's bracket down here. Next game will be Toronto playing against the Yomiuri Giants. That is the Japanese league team. So that will be the next game. National League, by the way, is also seeded 1st through 16th based on franchise winning percentage. So that will also be going on here. And it's triple elimination, meaning that a team can lose 3 times before they're eliminated. So the Yankees, even though they've lost once, they'd still have to lose 2 more times before they're eliminated here. Meanwhile, Seattle has to lose 3 more times because they won this first game. Finally, I just want to show you the updates to the Baseball Maelstrom website. You head over to baseballmaelstrom.com. You can follow the action. If you had followed my Payoff Pitch League that I had going, those results are still out here. You can hit this link to the Pops League page, and that will take you to the Payoff Pitch League page where you have access to these are the standings at the end of that season. You can get access to the stats, the schedule, World Series stats, the All-Star game, take a look at the teams, and so on. So you can still access all of that stuff, but the front page will be dominated by the Triple-Elimination tournament for right now. So after every game, I do a little write-up. So you'll be able to, if you follow the Baseball Maelstrom website, take a look. You'll see a little write-up on each game as I play it. And then there's a link. And if you click on the link, it'll take you to that game's page where you can see the line score here. You see the little recap write-up, and you can click this to get to the box score that I was showing you before. Down below that, you get a little snapshot of the bracket. It's not the entire bracket, but it's a portion of the bracket, so you can kind of see the progress there. And then you have the upcoming schedule that you can kind of take a look at, which is lengthy for the first day because we have all of the teams playing because nobody's been eliminated yet. And then the standings are just going to be, again, lengthy because it's going to show all of the teams. There aren't any divisions or that kind of thing to worry about. But if you want to go to the next page, because it only shows 10 at a time, you just click this 2. I have the American League teams entered here. I'm working on the National League, and once I get those entered, you'll be able to see all the teams in one place. Again, the standings don't really matter too much. The wins and losses in and of themselves don't matter. It's where they stand in the tournament that really matters. And then, of course, the scores over here will update as games are played too, so that you can see the past scores and click on the recap and all of that fun stuff over here as well. But for right now, you can see the Seattle at New York game is here. And if you click on this, it'll take you to that same game page that shows you a little recap of the game that was just played. After every couple of games, I'll upload the stats. You can't get to the stats yet, but I'll have a link up here for the stats. That will be the ball stat generated web pages for the league, so that you can see how all of the players are doing, how all of the team stats are doing, the leaders, and all of that fun stuff. With all that said, I've spoken quite a bit here. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear any comments that you have down below. I'll leave those down below. Consider, if you are interested in keeping up on this league, consider subscribing so you don't miss anything. And as always, keep watching baseballmaelstrom.com to keep up on the action. Thank you so much for watching tonight. And until next time, have a great evening.